A proud supporter of this program, Riverbend Food Bank's vision is a hunger-free Iowa and Illinois.
Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory has been serving Quad City families since 1889. Whelan Presley Funeral Homes are located in Rock Island, Milan, and Reynolds and are proud supporters of WQPT.
Rebuilding Moline. What should we be considering about the downtown? And dealing with cancer and kids. How Gilda's Club is getting children through a difficult time in the cities. Moline looks to make the most of a rare opportunity. The current Interstate 74 bridge covers more than 12 acres of prime real estate in the heart of the city, but by the year 2022, the State Department of Transportation will hand it over to the city and other property owners to do with it as they please. For Moline, it's not just a dozen acres of unused land, much of it already has utilities underneath, and all of it links the downtown with parts of the riverfront. So what should be the vision? And joining us are two men who may have an idea or two. Tom Murphy is the former mayor of Pittsburgh, senior resident fellow of the Urban Land Institute, and the Institute's senior vice president joins us, Tom Eitler. Thank you both for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation.
Mr. Mayor, what was your first impression when you came to Moline and you saw what the downtown looked like?
Well, I'm in love with the John Deere Pavilion, right? And the fact that you're on the river, and the fact that you have the Tax Slayer Center, and you have this opportunity. It's a puzzle that you need to put the pieces together. You have the pieces to make a spectacular city. I think the challenge your community has, and I think the bridge property might be the catalyst, is how do you connect the good pieces of what's going on in Moline, fill in the blanks, so to speak, the surface parking lots. And
that's the big issue.
It's a big issue. Fill them in with housing and retail.
As well. Yeah, okay.
I mean, you're bringing hundreds of thousands of people into downtown Moline who visit the John Deere Pavilion or going to performances at the Tax Slayer Center, but there's not a whole lot for them to do before or after. And so that part of the challenge for the city is to think about how do they connect all that.
Well, Mr. Eitler, tell me, how does the Urban Land Institute fit into this?
So we're a research and education organization. We're based in Washington, D.C., but we've got a global presence. We've got about 52 district councils. We've been doing these advisory service panels, which I think we're going to do for Moline probably in January or February. We're going to bring together a group of experts, and they're going to be here for a whole week to talk with people, interview people, and provide strategic advice to downtown Moline, to the city, as well as renew Moline.
Well, let's be honest. Moline, Illinois is not unique. It is small. It's a Rust Belt city. It really got hit in the 80s. It's trying to come back. Retail has left. A mall was built. So what new ideas do you have for an area that's faced all the old problems?
No, it's a good question, and we go to dozens of places like this around the country all the time, and so smaller, mid-sized, and smaller cities are part of our repertoire. We bring in folks who are developers in these kind of cities and land economists who look at the market and try to figure out, take an approach that would allow the city to try to take advantage of what they have. The land economists and the market analysts who will serve on this panel will actually provide advice to the developers. The developers will come up with a development program. They'll provide several options, and then our planners and architects will help say how that should be designed. But more importantly, we'll get people like Tom Murphy and other city leadership folks who will talk about how do you get chronologically, how do you start this process, and how do you do things that are going to happen that are going to help the downtown.
Well, and Mr. Mayor, let's be honest, the other big thing is that the city, the government can't do it on its own. You made a point in Pittsburgh of finding investment, find people who want to invest.
You need to build
downtown.
the partnerships, okay? And Moline has a history of good partnerships. You can see the results of some of that, and that's the key, is the city and so the developer comes and says, I want to do this, and so when I was mayor, a developer would come and say, Mayor, I have a great idea for you. And I'd say, with all due regard, tell me why it's a good idea for you. Mm-hmm. We'll decide whether it's a great idea for us. And if our self-interests come together, we'll be a good partner with you. That assumed we knew what we wanted. And so that's the first thing. Moline needs to be clear on what it wants its downtown to be. And it could be a mix of residential, retail, commercial, then they got to go after that.
Well, okay, so the key is to have a vision,
A vision first.
but that's a unified vision, and a lot of people might have different ideas.
But it needs to be, there's always going to be disagreement. I have a lot of arrows in my back.
Sure.
I understand that, right? And you got to try to build as much of a support as you can, but then you can't not do anything. You can't just sit still, because fundamentally the world is changing so rapidly, right?
Well, and that's a perfect example.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about the world changing so rapidly.
right.
I was looking at studies for what downtown Moline should look like just in 2001. That's just 18 years
It's
ago.
completely different.
It's
Right.
completely different. So how do you plan now for 20 years from now?
Well, I mean, it's the ultimate question, right? What's your vision? What do you want to be? I think one of the things people don't realize is there are there are land economics issues that our folks, I think, can provide some advice on, but it's really the leadership that has to decide what that unified vision is. What you have to do is you start someplace, and then you get people to understand it, and then they start coming along with you. I think my approach on all of these panels has always been let the folks who don't have a dog in the fight in Moline or in the Quad City area, people from outside who can bring examples and analogs from other places around the world and say, here's how we did it here. Does this work for you?
Is the key then, I mean, because you keep hearing this, at least now from development circles, pedestrian, pedestrian, pedestrian.
It's an important part. Connectivity, walkability, all of those things come into development now. Tom has a great statistic that he has about the number of kids these days,
So
millennials.
the average 24-year-old today is 6 times less likely to own an automobile than their parents.
Pretty amazing,
If that
because for
is-
us, we couldn't get the driver's license soon enough.
Right, that's right. And now kids are more focused on mobility. I mean, if you go to Washington, D.C., you're going to get run over by a scooter. I mean, there's these scooters and the bicycles and
You have Uber, you have public transit.
yeah,
but
so how people are moving around is very different than what, in my age, what we did at that age. But further, also boomers, people like me with gray hair, we are making different choices about how we want to live. If you look where boomers are moving, and you read AARP magazine, they want walkable communities, they want good culture and arts, the affordable communities, bike trails, walking trails, because we don't want to sit in a rocking chair all the time, right? And so cities that are shaping themselves for both of those markets, which are very similar in many ways, right? Then there are cities that are going to succeed. And you can watch it. Big cities like a Denver, look at, if you've been to Denver Union Station, which was essentially an abandoned railroad station with 30 acres of, now there's billions of dollars worth of development there in the last 10 years. Because Denver reimagined that in a different kind of way. Small cities like Greenville, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Erie, Pennsylvania, not much bigger than you guys, have thought about themselves in a different kind of way.
Well, and you've definitely seen that, the renaissance of
Right.
old buildings,
Right.
the creation of
Right.
living spaces in
Right.
what used to be warehouses.
Right.
And as you may know, Moline was known for the warehouses, the
Right.
Deere
Right.
warehouses that are all
Right.
gone now,
Right.
and that's what the Tax Layer Center
Right.
replaced.
Right.
That's what the Deere Pavilion
Right.
replaced. But there's still a lot of history downtown. Is that also a key, is to preserve that?
The authenticity of a place has the greatest value. If you can capture that, and that's what, for me, the John Deere Pavilion and your history. John Deere is an iconic brand in America. If you've ever been to Hershey, Pennsylvania, Hershey has built around their iconic brand. There's a little ride that will take you to show you how chocolate's made from the cocoa. But then they built a whole Hershey Park, and there's a whole day or two that you would spend in Hershey because they built on that iconic brand. And that's the John Deere Pavilion is, I'm sure hundreds of thousands of people a year come to Moline just because of John Deere.
So you talk about Deere, but you also have to talk about this I-74 bridge that's moving.
Right.
That is a unique opportunity for a community to have that in the heart of the city.
To have the city get control over that, to have a partnership downtown that can control over that land so they can understand how it can build into that vision is incredibly important. We were with that group today of thinking about what do you do with that property? Do you just turn it into parks? Do you think about what kind of residential that could go down there? What kind of commercial could go down there? All of those things will be in the assignment that this Urban Land Institute panel will get.
Because one of the great jewels of that piece of property, that 12 to 13 acres of land, is that the bridge was built in the 30s and then the second bridge in the 50s. There's infrastructure under there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's
you've got water lines, you've got water storage. Right. I mean, you've got a lot of but you know, you can work around those. But there's also a lot of land that could be developed in some different manner.
I think developers might see that as a plus too.
Sure. I mean, you've got the existing infrastructure there. The real question is what's the demand? What's the pent-up demand for residential in the downtown area? I think that is going to change. As Tom was saying, we've gone to a lot of these communities, but the desire for having people living in downtown has changed dramatically. Even in 20 years, 15 years.
I go to cities that, I mean, even 5 or 6 years ago said, oh, nobody wants to live in downtown Moline, or nobody wants to live in this downtown Erie, right? And then you were able to have the city partnering with the developer and get some residential going. And it's a home run.
It's almost 100% occupancy in each of the downtowns of the
Quad
Cities.
So the question, I mean, that was a testing the market, and it looks like it's working. And the question is, can you now accelerate that? And then that begins to feed on itself. More people downtown, more stuff going on,
more retail.
More people say, you know, it looks like it would be a great place to live, you know, and not have to deal with an acre of land and as I get rid of my kids, right?
Exactly. So that's because you've been pointing out the jewels of the downtown area. The arena, the Taxslayer Center, the John Deere Pavilion there. In Pittsburgh, much grander scale, but you also a river community. You also developed parks and fountains and meeting places. How important is it to have that type of collection?
Your riverfront, I mean, you have a spectacular opportunity on your riverfront, and you have the public trail, but you've not created restaurants and places there that people want to go. The water's magic. People love to be near the water, and that's what we did in Pittsburgh. We had really very little public access to our rivers. Now we have 30-mile riverfront park, but in lots of different places there's restaurants and bars, and you know, there's kayaking where you can rent kayaks or you can rent bikes.
But is that organic? Is it that the city
did something? No, we did it very intentionally. I mean, we underwrote some of it because we wanted to test the market, okay? And there's, probably $2 or $3 billion of development along our waterfronts now. But all of it has a public park, and like companies were worried about security, like people when riding bikes are going to break into their building. But when we said no, there's going to be a park, they changed the whole design of the building. They put locker rooms in for their employees, so that the employees could use the trail at lunchtime to be healthier, right? So we had changed the whole culture of our city in how we thought about our waterfronts.
Yeah, you've been talking about the fact that it's good to have outside eyes there. How important is it to get community input as well?
So a major part of this panel process, it's really the linchpin of the whole process, is a set of confidential interviews. We'll spend a whole day interviewing 100, 125 people in very private, confidential interviews, unlike a city council meeting where everybody has to say everything. We want to hear it from the horse's mouth, but we don't want people listening in. We want just the panel to hear that. And that has made the difference in all of these panels. We come in with a certain idea about what we think is going to happen. After those interviews, it changes completely.
People open up a little more?
They open up, and it's like a floodgate opening up for people to hear, people from outside who are in the land use and real estate business, who understand what these issues are, but to not have other folks from the community there. They can kind of say what they want. We ask questions like, if you had a magic wand, what are the one or two things you would do right on the waterfront today? What would you do if you had the magic wand, you had all the money in the world? Or they'll ask a question like, what are the two people who are either holding up or moving this process forward?
Right.
We want to know that, and it's done in that Chatham House rule format, which is we're not sharing anything about who said this. We will simply use it to inform what we say. We said, well, the panel heard. But the idea is to make the people feel comfortable about opening up. And like I say, it's a floodgate. You can't get them out of there in an hour interview. By the way, if you're in an interview for an hour and you know that no one's listening, it really, if you can't say what you need to say in an hour about what has to happen,
That's true. Tom Eitler, Tom Murphy, thank you so much for joining us from the Urban Land Institute, helping Moline develop its downtown. Well, we can start to feel the seasons changing in the area as we get a little deeper into October. Laura Adams joins us with a look at the events you can enjoy with family and friends when you decide to go out and about.
This is Out and About for October 7th through 13th. El Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, takes over the Figge Art Museum through the 27th. Or bring the whole family down for the LeClaire Apple Fest on the 13th. The Cambridge United Methodist Church's 30th annual Indoor Craft Show takes place the 12th, and it's time to run with the bull, a 5K run walk. Register to race at PeteThePurpleBull.com, while Augustana College's John Deere Planetarium is open for an evening of stargazing. The Mississippi Valley Fairgrounds hosts its first Oktoberfest on the 12th, and the Hauberg Estate holds a flashlight tour, a nocturnal adventure, on the 11th. Or dress up for the annual Not So Scary Halloween walk at the Quad City Botanical Center, while the QCCA Expo Center becomes Shock House through the 26th. Terror at Skellington Manor, Theater of the Macabre, scares you each weekend in October, and the Factory of Fear in Moline adds nearly 5,000 square feet of additional haunted rooms and characters through October. The Augustana Symphonic Band Fall Concert takes place in Centennial Hall the 12th, and the Muscatine Symphony Orchestra's Masterwork season begins October 12th. There's still time to catch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at Richmond Hill Players in Geneseo, and he's a hard-boiled detective tracking down treasure in The Man with Bogart's Face, a radio play at the Black Box Theater in downtown Moline. For more information, visit wqpt.org.
Thank you, Laura. We love the chance to introduce to you all types of music created by local artists around the cities. The drummer, who goes by the name Dead Ginger, has been creating music he says identifies with his inner soul. He joins us at the stage of the Black Box Theater in Moline. So here's Dead Ginger with Clarity to Chaos. That's Dead Ginger with Clarity to Chaos performing at the Black Box Theater in Moline. Everyone needs a good noogie now and then. That's just one of the eternal lessons we learned from comedian Gilda Radner before she died of ovarian cancer. And the Quad Cities chapter of Gilda's Club is living proof of that, complete with a Noogie Land that is marking 21 years of helping children deal with cancer in the family. And joining us is Kelly Kraft, Program Director of Gilda's Club in the Quad Cities. Noogie Fest is coming up next Saturday. Tell me why this is so important.
So Noogie Fest is a really awesome Halloween party for the entire community. So it's a kids Halloween party where the family brings the kids. It's free and open to the entire community. Kids come in, they have some free food, and then they get to go room to room in the house on the hill. And
let's be honest, the house on the hill on River Drive where Gilda's Club is located is fantastic. Any kid would love to run through that
That's
place.
half the fun, is just being able to explore the house. And all the rooms are decorated differently by different organizations and families in the area, and so they get to do a different activity in every room.
Now, actually, it's a bit of a compound because you have the main house and then you have that secondary area, and that's where Noogie Land is basically located. Tell me a little bit about that, because it's been 21 years, which means I'm really old. I remember when you first put it in.
So Noogie Land is our kids space. That's what we call all of our kids programming is Noogie Land. So every Wednesday night from 6 to 8, we have kids running around there hanging out with me and our volunteers. And we have supervised play. We just play games and hang out. And I can also do some more specific support groups with kids who are actually going through a hard time.
And then let's talk about that, because I mean, it's almost like a distraction for them, but also a way for them to even open up.
It's both. So for part of the night, if there are kids whose parents are actively going through a diagnosis right now, we can do a more structured support group, but that's just part of the night. And then they get to hang out with other kids who are going through a similar situation.
Which is amazing, you know, because I mean, the peer-to-peer is always so medicinal for so many people.
Yeah, and I mean, even when they're just playing games and stuff, sometimes it comes out of like who in their family has cancer, and sometimes when they don't have to look somebody straight in the eye, maybe they're playing a game or making a friendship bracelet, they're able to talk about it while they're doing that other activity.
Well, and let's be honest, I mean, kids can really open up very bluntly to one another, and it's almost like, yeah, we're all in it together.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you a little bit about what you have going on, because you also have Teen Times and Noogie Nights. Let's talk about Noogie Nights, and that's what you were talking about, is on Wednesday nights. Who's invited, who can take part, and obviously it's free.
So it's any kid that is impacted by cancer. So maybe they have cancer themselves, maybe a parent or grandparent or a family member or friend that they're close with. And at the same time, we have our support groups for the person, an adult with the diagnosis, and the family members. So the family can come together, go to their different support groups and activities, really talk about what they need to talk about, and then they get to leave together. And nobody has to find a sitter or worry about any of that.
Yeah, and that's really kind of important too. I've never even thought about that, is that if you need some help, what are you going to do with the kids? And the kids need the help as well.
Absolutely.
Well, how do you try to get involved? I mean, because you don't want to push. You don't want to try to pry open something that maybe they're not ready to divulge. I mean, how does that work for you?
You start slow. So we have our kid support program that really has some get to know you stuff. Sometimes when the kids first come, we just do supervised play for a while until I think they might be ready for a more support group environment. But we start off slow. If I feel like a kid's not ready to open up, then we'll do some things that are more activity based. And hopefully I just get a little bit of being able to support them in there.
And you also have family groups as well, so that you can have everyone come together and openly talk about it. And that's got to be somewhat relieving for the adult as well.
Yeah, they all just get to talk about what they need to talk about. So the person with the diagnosis goes to their support group, and the family group is then another room. They really get to talk about the different things that they might be going through. The kids hang out with me, and then they get to all talk about it at the end when they drive home together.
Let's talk about the upcoming holiday season, because of course you have Halloween. The kids are going to love that. Thanksgiving, Christmas, stressful for people under normal circumstances. People who have been diagnosed with cancer might have that added stress. I mean, is that something that you see, is that these months, especially heading into winter, your services may be something that are even more important than the rest of the year?
The holidays can be a hard time for families going through any type of difficult situation. So right now, when we are heading into those holiday seasons, it is extra helpful, because sometimes Christmas or Thanksgiving may look different this year because someone isn't feeling well, or maybe they lost somebody. And so things are going to be different this year, and so we can be there to help them
Well, let's be honest.
navigate that.
I mean, your emotions start cascading in on yourself as well, and sometimes that might happen before you even know that you're being piled on to an extent that's very difficult to handle. So I would think the toughest thing, as in with anything, including being a part of Gilda's Club, is taking that first step. So what do you recommend to somebody who's watching, who might be in a stressed out position, or even knows somebody who's going, yeah, that sounds like this person?
Just give us a call. We make it pretty easy. If you give us a call, we'll get you in for a new member meeting, that's what we call it, and really just go through our entire program and match different pieces of it to you and what might work for you and your family. And you just use it however you want.
Well, we've talked about the House on the Hill, and I think it's the smallest community that has a Gilda's Club. I mean, it used to be.
It was only the 7th one in the entire country, and now there are lots and lots of them. So it's definitely one of the smaller ones, for sure.
And you've expanded to even smaller communities. You now have a presence in Muscatine as well as in Clinton. I mean, it's kind of a nice outreach. How have you noticed that occur? I mean, have you felt that those two communities are embracing?
I think it's working really well. Like Muscatine has a higher than average rate of late stage cancer diagnosis. So a lot of those people need a lot of extra help with that diagnosis. So we've got chair yoga there, we've got support groups, other educational stuff, and it's all pretty well attended. We're getting a lot of good feedback.
And then Clinton, you're just kind of working in there as well, trying to develop the programs there for the people in Clinton County?
Yep, right now we've got 2 support groups there, and we're just trying to kind of drum up some more people.
Yeah. Noogie Fest, once again, it's coming up Saturday. Help me out here. Is it 4 to 6?
4 to 6 on Saturday, October 19th.
Just show up.
Yep, just show up.
Just show up. You'll have a great time.
Yep, you don't need to let us know.
Thank you. Kelly Kraft, Program Director with Gilda's Club of the Quad Cities. So nice of you to join us and have fun and spread a couple noogies. I always love doing that. Once again, it's coming up Saturday, October 19th from 4 until 6, Gilda's Club on River Drive in Davenport. WQPT wants to know if you've ever heard of Scratch Junior. With PBS Kids Scratch Junior, that is, kids can create their own interactive stories and games. They learn to code through games featuring characters from PBS Kids programs. They learn to solve problems, design projects, and push their own creativity to new limits. The free app is now available from the App Store on iPad and on Google Play for Android users. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
A proud supporter of this program, Riverbend Food Bank's vision is a hunger-free Iowa and Illinois.
Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory has been serving Quad City families since 1889. Whelan Presley Funeral Homes are located in Rock Island, Milan, and Reynolds and are proud supporters of WQPT.